"You people always think you're special," Dr. Richard Hall sneered, his voice slicing through the delivery room like a scalpel, as if the sound of a black woman in pain was just noise beneath his license. The automatic doors groaned open and breathed out a wash of disinfectant, cold air, and the low rumble of voices. Fluorescent lights ran the length of the ceiling like a runway. Alicia Carter leaned into the threshold and braced one hand against the wall as a cramp cinched her middle. A hard belt pulled one notch too tight. "Ma'am," a security guard said, stepping forward. I'm 28 weeks, Alicia managed, pressing the heel of her hand below her ribs. "Pain. Right side. It keeps coming." The guard waved her toward the triage desk. The line was 6 deep. A boy holding a towel to his eyebrow, a man coughing into a mask, a woman with a swollen ankle double-wrapped in an ace bandage. The nurse behind the computer, thin, gray hair swept into a clip, did not look up. Alicia tried to breathe like the prenatal class had taught her, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The pain loosened, then returned, a dull knife twisting under her ribs. She thought of the baby's last ultrasound, the tiny rib cage rising and falling like a bird in sleep. She had a name picked out, but hadn't said it aloud. It felt like telling a secret to the sky. When she reached the desk, the nurse finally looked up. "Name?" "Alicia Carter." "Date of birth?" "December 7th, 96. "What brings you in today?" 28 weeks pregnant, Alicia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Severe upper abdominal pain. Nausea this morning. It's worse now." The nurse typed, expression flat. "First pregnancy?" "Yes." "Any bleeding?" "No." "Water break?" "No, it just hurts." Alicia pressed her palm to the counter as another wave crested. "It feels wrong." The nurse's eyes slid from the screen to Alicia's face, then down to the small gold cross at her throat, the braid pinned carefully at the nape of her neck, the ring on her finger. "Rate your pain 1 to 10. 8. A pause. "We'll get you to a room when one opens." Alicia swallowed. "Is there an OB?" "We're an emergency department. You'll see whichever physician is on." The nurse clipped a plastic bracelet around Alicia's wrist and gestured to a bay of blue chairs clustered around a TV tuned to a daytime talk show. Alicia lowered herself into a seat and curled forward, fingers trembling over her phone. She typed a message to Marcus. "at St. Aidan's. Right side pain. Come." She didn't add a heart. She didn't add anything to soften it. Across from her, a toddler with grape-stained lips hit his sippy cup against the armrest. Somewhere, a monitor beeped in time with Alicia's breathing. She tried to focus on simple things, the seam where the wall met the floor, the red exit sign, the way the fluorescent lights hummed like a distant hive. In her prenatal app, a cartoon demonstrated pelvic tilts and stretches meant to ease common pregnancy discomforts. A line below in cheerful font suggested ginger tea. Alicia had ginger tea every morning. This wasn't ginger tea pain. "Carter," someone called. She stood too fast and had to stop as the room tilted. A young nurse with dark, serious eyes waited by a half-open door. Her badge read Sarah ERN. "Let's get you into triage 2. Sarah guided Alicia onto a narrow bed and clipped a pulse ox meter onto her finger. "Tell me everything," she said, typing as Alicia spoke. Her questions were quick but not rushed. They made Alicia feel like a person and not a shape in a chair. "When did it start? Any visual changes? Headache? Swelling in your hands or face? Have you had your blood pressure checked recently?" "This morning, and—" "Yes, I've had headaches the past 2 days. I thought it was the heat. My rings feel tight." "My OB appointment is Friday." Sarah nodded, lips thinning. She wrapped the cuff around Alicia's arm and pressed the start button. The machine hummed, then squeezed. Alicia watched the numbers spool up. 153/98. The reading held. Sarah's eyes flicked to Alicia's face before she hit the button again. 155/97. "That seems high," Alicia said. "We're going to get labs," Sarah said, neutral. "Has baby been moving?" "Yes. Slower today. I'm going to get a Doppler." Sarah gelled Alicia's belly and angled the wand. After a moment, thump, 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 rapid and steady. Relief washed through Alicia so quickly she almost cried. Sarah adjusted the angle, listened, then wiped away the gel. "I'm paging the ed physician now," she said. "Do you have someone with you?" "My fiancé." "He's on his way." "Good, I'll be right back." When Sarah left, the room's thin privacy curtain breathed in the wake of the closing door. Alicia stared at the ceiling tiles. There were little brown flecks in the white, like someone had thrown coffee at the sky. She tried again to breathe the way the class taught her. In, out. Think of a place that feels safe. A knock, not a question. The curtain moved, and a doctor stepped in. He was in his 50s, short gray hair clipped close, a white coat with Halle, M.D., stitched above the pocket. His shoulders carried a practiced impatience. His mouth had the set of a man who disliked being called away. He lifted her chart before he lifted his eyes. "Alicia Carter," he read. "First pregnancy. Abdominal pain." He glanced at the cuff at the monitor. "What brings you in beyond discomfort?" The question landed wrong. Alicia forced a smile. "It's more than discomfort. It's an 8. My blood pressure, I think it's high." He tapped his pen on the clipboard. "Pregnancy can cause a lot of aches, round ligament pain. Gas. How far along are you?" 28 weeks. He pressed his fingers into her abdomen without warning. Alicia flinched. "Does that hurt?" he asked. "Yes." He moved his hand higher, then lower. "How about that?" "Yes," she whispered. He made a note. "Any vaginal bleeding?" "No." Alicia swallowed. "But I've had headaches. My hands are—" She lifted them. "Puffy." He set the chart down. "Have you been keeping up with your prenatal vitamins?" "Yes." "Good. We'll get you some fluids, maybe some Tylenol. Gas can cause upper abdominal pain. You had anything to eat today?" "Toast and water. Doctor, this doesn't feel like gas." He smiled in a way that wasn't a smile. "First pregnancies come with a lot of anxiety, especially for young moms. I'm 28. He did not acknowledge the correction. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll run a basic panel. There's a long wait for ultrasound." Alicia stared at him. "My blood pressure? We'll keep an eye on it. Isn't 150 dangerous? For the baby?" "Numbers bounce. Pain raises pressure," he said, and then light, almost casual. "We see this a lot in certain populations." The sentence hovered there, unsaid, and said. Alicia felt the air shift. "Certain populations?" she asked softly. Dr. Hall looked at the clock, ignoring the question. "Nurse will start fluids. If you're still uncomfortable after Tylenol, we'll reassess." He turned to leave. Alicia heard herself say, "What about preeclampsia?" Holly paused. He pivoted back with a doctor's laugh, the kind meant to tidy a room. "You've been on Google." "I've been to my OB. She said to come to the AA if I had upper right pain and a headache and swelling. I have all 3. He lifted his chin. "And your OB didn't see you today?" "It's Wednesday. My appointment is Friday." "Then we'll see you Friday," he said, not unkindly, but with a tone that closed every door. The curtain swayed. He was gone. Alicia stared at the empty space where he had been. Another cramp rolled hard across her ribs. She pressed her fist to her mouth to keep from crying out. When Sarah came back with an 4 kit, Alicia tried to speak evenly. He said fluids and Tylenol. Sarah's jaw flexed. She inserted the catheter smoothly, taped it down, and hung the bag. "We're also drawing blood," she said. "Liver enzymes, platelets, urine protein." "Will he be mad?" "We're following protocol," Sarah said quietly. "You said your OB told you to seek care for right upper quadrant pain. You did the right thing." The curtain opened again. "Ma'am?" Marcus's voice, soft and alarmed. He stepped close, broad shoulders hunching to fit around the machines. He smelled like outside air and wintergreen gum. "Baby?" "I'm okay," Alicia said, though the word okay felt like a coat she had borrowed, something that didn't fit. Marcus found her hand and held it, thumb moving over the blue veins at her wrist. "What did the doctor say?" Alicia hesitated. Sarah had left the room. The monitor ticked in the quiet. He thinks it's normal. Or gas. Marcus lifted his head, the disbelief on his face like a light turned on. With that blood pressure? He said numbers bounce. Sarah pushed the curtain with her elbow and reappeared with a small cup. Tylenol, she said, voice neutral. She glanced at Marcus, then at Alicia, then at the monitor. She lowered her voice. I sent a text to the charge nurse asking for OB consult. I didn't put it in the chart yet. Why? Marcus asked. Because Dr. Howe has opinions, Sarah said, choosing the word like a careful step on ice. But he doesn't decide everything. Marcus squeezed Alicia's hand. Thank you. Sarah checked the 4, then looked directly at Alicia. If the pain changes, if you get visual spots, if you feel breathless, if you notice less movement, you tell me. Don't wait. When she left, Marcus leaned over and kissed Alicia's forehead. We'll get a second opinion, he said. If I have to carry you to another hospital, I don't want to move, Alicia whispered. I don't want to risk anything. They settled into a rhythm of waiting. The TV in the corner murmured about a celebrity divorce. Footsteps passed, stopped, passed again. The fluids ran cold into her arm. The pain ebbed a little, then sharpened, then ebbed again, like a tide with a mind of its own. Sarah returned with a small plastic cup and a strip. Urine dip, she said. She helped Alicia to the bathroom and waited outside the door. When Alicia handed the cup back, Sarah dipped the strip, watched the colors creep, then frowned. What does that mean? Alicia asked. Could be protein, Sarah said, voice even. The lab will confirm. Protein is bad, Marcus said almost to himself, right? Sarah looked at them both. It can be a sign of preeclampsia. She let the words sit. We need labs to be sure. The curtain opened again without a knock. Dr. Hall stepped in with a new pair of gloves half pulled on. How are we feeling? He asked the room. Uncomfortable, Alicia said. He glanced at the 4 bag. Fluids help? A little. Good. Sarah slid the urine strip into a biohazard bag and labeled it. Hale's eyes followed the motion. You ordered a urine protein? He asked. Yes, Sarah said. Unnecessary, Holly said lightly. But fine. We'll humor the computers. He set a stethoscope to Alicia's chest and listened for a moment. Lungs sound clear. Try to relax. Pregnancy heightens perception of pain. You'll be fine, Marcus straightened. Doctor, with respect, her pressure is high. She's in pain. She has swelling and headaches. Isn't that enough to get an OB down here? Holly slid the stethoscope into his coat pocket. His eyes moved over Marcus's hoodie, his work boots, the tension in his shoulders. Security is just outside, he said, a warning sheathed as a courtesy, and then to Alicia, we'll check back in an hour. That's too long, Marcus said. Hal smiled without warmth. Crowded ERs mean patients. The curtain side closed behind him. Silence filled the room for a beat, then 2. Marcus sat slowly, jaw tight. I'll go to the desk, he said. I'll ask for the charge nurse. Don't, Alicia said, catching his sleeve. Please. Not yet. He settled back, forced a breath out. Okay. Minutes stretched. The fluids emptied. The pain crept back with a different edge, higher under her ribs, like a hand tightening. Alicia shifted and felt a lightness in her fingers that scared her, like her hands didn't belong to her body. She blinked and the fluorescent lights haloed, a bright smear. Spots skittered across her vision like dust motes that had learned to run. Marcus, she said, I feel weird. He was on his feet in an instant, head at the curtain. Nurse, somebody nurse. Sarah appeared first, then another nurse. Tell me, Sarah said, already fastening the cuff. Light in my eyes, Alicia said. Spots, the cuff tightened. 164, 100 seconds blinked back. Sarah looked at the number, then at Alicia, then at the hallway. I'm calling OB, she said, and there was nothing careful in her voice now. She hit a button on the wall phone and spoke in a way that turned the air electric. This is ED Triage 2. 28 weeks pregnant with severe right upper quadrant pain, headache, visual changes, elevated BP, protein on dip. We need an OB now. From the hallway came the speed of purposeful feet. A second later, Dr. Holly pushed through the curtain, annoyance bright and sharp. "What is this?" "Hypertensive crisis," Sarah said crisply. "Possible severe pre-eclampsia." Howell scoffed. "You're catastrophizing." A woman in scrubs with OBGYN on her badge slid in behind him, eyes already assessing. "What are her labs?" "Still pending," Sarah said, "but dip is positive. BP is sustained over 161 hundredths. Rook pain, visual disturbance." The OB doctor stepped to Alicia's side and took her hand. "I'm Dr. Patel," she said, voice low and steady. "We're going to take care of you and your baby. I'm ordering magnesium sulfate and labs, stat. We need to move you to labor and delivery." Hale's jaw tightened. Completely unnecessary. Dr. Patel didn't look at him. "Orders in," she told Sarah. To Alicia. "You did the right thing by coming." Alicia's eyes burned. Relief moved through her, dizzying and bright. The baby shifted under her hand, as if to say, "I'm here, I'm here." Halle lingered, an unwelcome shadow. "If you want to escalate every anxious first time," Dr. Patel turned then cool. "Step out, Dr. Hall." He opened his mouth, closed it, and left. The room changed temperature when he was gone. Sarah was already hanging a new bag, connecting lines with quick, practiced clicks. Marcus stood at Alicia's shoulder, his voice in her ear. "You hear that? They're moving you upstairs. Baby's okay. You did everything right. Stay with me," Alicia whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." As the magnesium drip began, the edges on the fluorescent lights softened. The spots retreated. Alicia breathed in, breathed out. She thought of the baby's name and allowed herself to think it just once, in the quiet between heartbeats. On the other side of the curtain, voices rose and fell. Pages, orders, the day moving. Somewhere down the hall, Dr. Hale's shoes clicked against linoleum, receding. Upstairs, a room was being made ready. Alicia closed her eyes and listened to the steady drum of the Doppler, the sound of a life insisting on itself. She held Marcus's hand and did not let go. And as the gurney locks snapped open and the wheels began to turn, she knew this was only the start. The walls of labor and delivery were painted in soft earth tones, with fake-framed photos of sleeping infants and the word peace in cursive script above one of the doors. But peace was the last thing Alicia Carter felt. The magnesium sulfate burned her veins like fire, heavy in her limbs, her skin damp with sweat. A monitor beeped steadily beside her, and every few seconds, the fetal heartbeat thumped through the speakers like a ticking metronome. "You'll be all right," Nurse Sarah whispered, adjusting the IV. "You're safe now. Dr. Patel's one of the best." Alicia nodded faintly, her eyelids dragging from the medication's weight. Marcus stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed tight. His boots were dusty from work, his face unshaven. He hadn't spoken much since they moved her upstairs, but Alicia could read his body, the tension, the way his jaw clicked every time the door opened. "He still works here," he said finally, low. "Dr. Holly, after what he just did." Sarah met his eyes. "I know." "No, you don't. You saw it. He dismissed her, put our baby at risk." "I believe you," she said, "but it's not enough to just say it. We need to prove it, on paper, in reports." Alicia opened her eyes. "How do you report someone like that?" Sarah hesitated. Carefully. 2 hours later, Dr. Patel returned with a printout in her hand and concern written all over her face. "I've reviewed your labs," she said, sitting beside Alicia's bed. "You have elevated liver enzymes, low platelets, and protein in your urine. We call this HELP syndrome. It's a severe form of pre-eclampsia." Alicia's heart dropped. "It's good that you came in when you did," Dr. Patel continued. "If this had progressed further, we could be looking at seizures, liver rupture. It could have been fatal to you and the baby." Marcus stepped closer. "What now?" "We're stabilizing Alicia with magnesium to prevent seizures," she said. "But you're 28 weeks. We may need to deliver early." "Not tonight, but soon." Alicia's throat closed. "But the baby isn't ready." "We're giving steroid injections to help mature the lungs. Neonatal ICU is already prepping a space. You're in the best place possible now, but there's something I need to ask." Patel glanced at the monitors, then back at Alicia. "Who evaluated you when you first arrived?" Alicia hesitated. "Dr. Holly." Patel's jaw visibly tensed. "He charted your pain as mild and your demeanor as hysterical." Marcus's face twisted. "He what?" "I've seen it before," Patel said quietly. "He has a history." Sarah, standing behind her, said nothing, but her hands stilled. Alicia felt something sharp in her chest, sharper than any of the pain she'd felt before. "He tried to make me feel crazy, like I was imagining it." "You weren't," Patel said. "I'm going to file an internal incident report. You can file one too. It helps." Alicia blinked back tears. "Will anything happen?" Patel didn't lie. "It's slow. But yes, if it builds enough, you won't be the only one." Later that night, after the lights dimmed and the noise outside dulled, Sarah came back in with a clipboard and a quiet urgency. "You up for a real conversation?" she asked. Alicia nodded slowly. Sarah sat. "I've worked here for 6 years. I've seen that man misdiagnose, delay treatment, and talk down to more women of color than I can count. He writes things like drug-seeking behavior in charts without proof. Labels young black women as dramatic, non-compliant, anxious. I've said something twice before. Nothing stuck. You might be different." "Why me?" "Because you have Marcus. Because you're coherent. Because the labs back you up. And because the OB on call had the guts to put it in the system." Marcus leaned forward. "So what do we do?" "You write your report. I'll add mine. Dr. Patel will file hers. And," she hesitated, "there's a woman. Kenya Adams. She filed a complaint last year after he sent her home with a ruptured ectopic. I still have her number. She said if anything ever happened again, she'd speak." Alicia's breath hitched. "He almost killed her?" "Yes." "Why is he still here?" Sarah exhaled. "Because doctors like him know how to sound confident, how to make nurses look unreliable, how to twist pain into panic and fear into non-compliance." Alicia gripped the blanket. "I want to file. I want to fight." Sarah placed the clipboard gently in her lap. "Then let's start here." By morning, Alicia's labs had stabilized, but the swelling in her face hadn't gone down. The pain was still there, dull and pulsing. She hadn't slept, not really. Marcus sat beside her with a bag of grapes and ginger ale. He hadn't left the hospital all night. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. At 8:12 a.m., the curtain rustled, and in stepped Dr. Richard Holly. Alicia felt her spine stiffen against the bed. "Good morning," he said, setting a chart on the tray. "I saw your name on the census. Thought I'd check in." Sarah stepped in behind him, quiet, unreadable. Alicia didn't respond. Hal smiled faintly, clearly mistaking the silence for gratitude. "Looks like you're responding to treatment. That's good news." Marcus stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "You almost cost her this baby." Hale's smile froze. "Excuse me?" "You ignored her symptoms, mocked her. You didn't even order labs." "I followed standard protocol," Holly said, calm but firm. "The symptoms she described were nonspecific. There was no indication at the time. Her BP was 155. She had swelling and root pain," Marcus snapped. "That's 3 red flags." "And I documented them," Holly said. "Patients often exaggerate pain when anxious. It's not uncommon." Alicia's voice came out thin but clear. "You dismissed me because I'm black." That landed like a slap. Hale's eyes flicked to Sarah, who stood like a sentinel behind him. "I treat all patients the same," he said slowly. "If you felt otherwise—" "I don't feel," Alicia said. "I almost died." There was a pause. Then Holly straightened. "If you intend to file a complaint, you're within your rights. I'll add my notes to the record. Good day." He turned and left, his white coat trailing behind him. Sarah came forward and handed Alicia a second form. "Risk management will reach out. You're not alone in this." Later that week, while Alicia remained hospitalized for monitoring, Marcus sat in the hospital lobby, scrolling through his phone. He was looking for lawyers. He wasn't just mad anymore. He was afraid of what might have happened if he hadn't been there. If Sarah hadn't spoken up, if Dr. Patel hadn't listened. A ping lit up his screen. New message. Kenya Adams. It read, I heard what happened. I've been waiting to speak up. Let me know when and where. I'm in. Back upstairs, Alicia sat upright for the first time in days, watching the sky shift outside the window. It was light blue, almost white at the edges, and reminded her of the baby's ultrasound photo. Dr. Patel came in with a tablet in hand. Good news. Baby's stable. We're aiming to hold off delivery as long as we can. Alicia exhaled. Thank you. You filed the report? I did. Patel nodded, setting the tablet down. Then it started. But it won't be easy. Just know, once you shine a light in a system like this, they scramble hard to switch it off. Alicia looked at her. Let them scramble. She didn't know where this road would end. Lawsuits, media, hearings, or silence. But she knew one thing. She wasn't backing down. Not for her. Not for the baby. Not for anyone else who might walk into a hospital and be told their pain didn't matter. Alicia sat upright in the hospital bed, a pillow tucked behind her lower back, the magnesium drip finally removed. She felt clearer now. Weaker, yes, but focused. The swelling in her fingers had gone down, and she could finally wear her engagement ring again. It sparkled faintly as she adjusted the volume on the monitor, tracking her baby's heartbeat. The steady thump-thump calmed her. But something else churned inside her chest. Marcus returned from the hospital cafe with 2 cups of watery coffee and a slice of banana bread he'd bartered for with a vending machine dollar, and a tired smile. You okay? He asked. She looked at him. I want to know what else he's done. Marcus paused, the cup mid-air. Holly? She nodded. He didn't hesitate when he dismissed me, like he'd done it before, and got away with it. He sat down beside her. Kenya called again. She's ready. She said she has paperwork, medical records, emails, screenshots of her messages to the hospital's patient advocacy office. Alicia's pulse quickened. You think she'd meet with me? She asked, too. The next afternoon, Alicia was wheeled down to the hospital's healing garden, really just a patch of ferns and a few benches under a white tent on the east side of the building. She wore a mask and a blanket over her legs. The sun felt good on her skin. Kenya Adams arrived in jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. She walked with the faintest limp. Her eyes were tired but fierce. I almost didn't come back here, she said as she sat down beside Alicia. Not after what he did to me. What happened? Alicia asked softly. I came in with abdominal pain 6 weeks pregnant. I told them something felt off. Bleeding, sharp cramping. Dr. Holly did 1 ultrasound and said it was too early to tell anything. Sent me home with Tylenol. The next night my tube ruptured. Alicia blinked. Your fallopian tube? Yeah. Kenya's voice tightened. Emergency surgery. Blood transfusion. They said another 30 minutes. I might have died. Marcus was standing nearby, arms folded tight. I filed a report, Kenya continued. They said they'd investigate. 2 months later, I got a letter saying the case was closed. Unsubstantiated. No apology. No follow-up. They covered it, Alicia said. They always do. Alicia swallowed hard. Do you want to go public? Kenya looked out over the parking lot. I didn't before. I was embarrassed, scared, but you made noise. People are listening now. Alicia took a deep breath. Then let's do it together. That night, Alicia emailed a civil rights advocacy group based in D.C. that specialized in maternal health disparities. She attached her hospital report, her labs, and her complaint form. She also attached her story. By the time she woke up the next morning, she had 3 replies and a request for an interview. 2 days later, the story was up. The headline, Black Mother Nearly Dies After Doctor Ignores Preeclampsia Symptoms at Chicago Hospital. Alicia's photo was cropped tight, no baby bump, just her eyes staring into the lens. Kenya's quote followed hers, then references to other women who had reached out privately. The article mentioned Dr. Holly by name. Within hours, the hospital's switchboard was flooded. Social media picked it up. The hashtag listen to black mothers trended for the first time in months. Dr. Patel visited Alicia later that afternoon, tablet in hand. "Well," she said, raising an eyebrow, "you broke the internet." Alicia almost smiled. "I got a call from the board this morning," Patel added. "They're opening an internal review into Dr. Hale's patient history. Someone upstairs is sweating." "Good," Marcus muttered from the corner. "They've also moved him off the ER rotation, temporarily." "Temporarily?" Alicia repeated. "Policies take time, but eyes are on him now." Patel paused. "More importantly, how are you?" Alicia rubbed her belly gently. "Baby's moving. I feel like I have purpose again." Patel offered a tight smile. "Then stay strong. Your case might open a floodgate." Meanwhile, inside the administrative wing of the hospital, meetings were being held behind locked doors. Risk management reviewed every file with Hale's name. 6 cases were flagged for concern, 2 for outright negligence. 1 was under gag order. HR scoured his emails. Complaints that had been marked as low priority were suddenly reopened. They found evidence that a nurse, Sarah, had submitted 2 prior concerns and been ignored. Sarah was called into a meeting with legal. She went with her union rep. When they asked if she'd be willing to rephrase her prior concerns in light of recent developments, she said no. When they asked if she'd like to rescind her previous complaints, she laughed. Then she handed over screenshots. Dated, signed, time-stamped. "You knew," she said. "You knew, and you kept him in charge of women's lives." By the end of the week, 3 more women came forward, 2 anonymously, 1 on video. One was a black woman who came in with chest pain and was misdiagnosed with anxiety. She had a heart attack 6 hours later. Another was Latina, bleeding during pregnancy, sent home with a script for ibuprofen. The video interview was the most damning. A grieving husband holding a photo of his wife, who died of undiagnosed postpartum complications. "He told her to take iron pills," the man said. "She was bleeding to death inside, and he sent her home." The hospital tried to issue a statement. Something generic. "We take all concerns seriously. We are committed to providing the highest standard of care to all our patients." But the damage was done. That Sunday, protesters stood outside the hospital gates. Nurses and med students marched with signs. One read, "We are not dramatic. We are dying." Back in her room, Alicia watched the footage on her phone. She couldn't believe it. Her name was on national news. Her photo. Her voice. She wasn't invisible anymore. Marcus leaned over her shoulder. "You started this." "I don't want it to be about me," Alicia said. "I want it to matter. It does." Just then, her OB entered with a cautious smile. "Labs look steady. We're pushing toward 32 weeks. That gives the baby a real shot." Alicia nodded. "When can I go home?" "Soon. Few more days, maybe." As the doctor checked the fetal monitor, Alicia added, "I want to keep fighting, even after I deliver. Is that reckless?" "No," the OB said, smiling faintly. "It's brave." Down in the A, Dr. Richard Hall packed up his locker. His badge was deactivated that morning. He'd been told it was administrative leave, pending the outcome of an internal review. He knew what that meant. His hands trembled as he folded his coat. His name tag felt heavy. His face, once so confident in every white hallway, was now just another reflection in the steel of the locker door. For the first time in years, he had no patience, no power, no audience. He slammed the locker shut. And for the first time in years, someone like Alicia Carter had a voice louder than his. The letter came in a navy blue envelope with the hospital seal embossed in silver, formal, sterile, and heavy with implication. Alicia opened it slowly, half expecting it to burst into flames in her hands. It was a cease and desist. Your recent public statements, interviews, and social media activity regarding St. Aidan Memorial Hospital and Dr. Richard Halley constitute reputational harm and defamation. We request that you immediately cease all public commentary and consider private mediation before escalation. Alicia read the letter twice. Then she laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Marcus leaned over her shoulder. "You've got to be kidding. They're threatening me for telling the truth." He folded the paper and set it aside. "They're scared." She knew he was right. Still, it stung, not because it frightened her, but because it confirmed what she'd always suspected. They'd never seen her as a person, just a risk to manage, a liability, a case. Jasmine, her attorney, wasn't surprised. "They're testing your resolve," she said during their Zoom call. "They'll act nice in public and threaten you in private. You're rattling the hive. I don't want money, I want change. You might get both. But I don't want a payout to mean I can't speak. Ever." Jasmine gave a small nod. "Then we keep going. But it will get nastier before it gets better." "I don't care," Alicia said. "They already tried to kill me with silence. It didn't work." In the hospital, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Nurses whispered in break rooms. Residents avoided eye contact. Doctors walked on eggshells. And Dr. Holly? He hadn't returned in 10 days. There were rumors of medical board interviews. One nurse overheard him yelling in the parking lot on the phone the words "witch hunt" and "entitled patients" hissing through clenched teeth. But for now, he was a ghost in a white coat, a name everyone knew, but no one dared say too loud. Sarah was called into HR again. This time they were polite, friendly even. A different tone. "We just want to make sure you're supported," the manager said with a frozen smile. "This lawsuit, it puts the whole team under pressure. We're a family, after all." Sarah stared at her. "If this place was a family, we wouldn't be cleaning up after the same doctor's mistakes for 6 years." The manager blinked. "I'll be in my station," Sarah said, standing, "where the patients are." Meanwhile, Alicia's baby was getting stronger. 35 weeks. Every day she walked the hallway, one hand on her belly, the other curled loosely around Marcus's. They passed bulletin boards filled with cheerful flyers, breastfeeding week and cultural competency workshop, and Alicia couldn't help but feel the irony burn. "They love putting up posters," she muttered, "but they let that man treat my life like a footnote." "Not anymore," Marcus said. Then came a turning point. The local newspaper ran a Sunday front-page feature titled "The Disparity in the Diagnosis," with a side-by-side photo of Alicia and Dr. Holly and a caption that read, "One woman's pain, one doctor's pattern." The article included the testimonies of 7 women, anonymous interviews with staff, data on racial disparities in maternal mortality, and most damning, a leak. An anonymous source from within the hospital provided an internal risk report from 2021. It listed Dr. Holly among 5 flagged providers with repeated patient complaints. His name was circled twice. The report had been filed away. No action was taken. Until now. The next day, Jasmine received a call from the state medical board. "I thought you should know," the investigator said. "We're opening a formal misconduct review. There's enough here for us to subpoena Hale's patient logs and incident reports from the last 10 years. Jasmine grinned. "It's about time." And then it was time for Alicia to testify. Not in a courtroom, not yet, but in front of the hospital review board, which had been forced by public pressure to hold a hearing. Alicia wore a simple black dress and stood behind a glass podium in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and polished floors. Across from her sat a half-circle of executives, 2 doctors, 3 legal reps, and 1 public health administrator. She read her statement slowly, clearly. "You know my vitals, you know my numbers. You've seen my file," she said. "But you don't know how it feels to sit in a hospital bed knowing someone chose not to help you. Because of who you are, because of what you look like, because they didn't think your pain was real." One of the board members looked up at her, the pen in her hand stilled. "I'm still pregnant. I'm still healing. But I'm here because I don't want any more women walking into this place and being told they're overreacting, or dramatic, or just too emotional." She folded the paper in her hands. "You have a chance to fix this. Please don't bury it again." When she left the building, a small crowd was gathered outside. Nurses, reporters, mothers with strollers. Sarah stood near the steps, clapping slowly. And for the first time, Alicia let herself believe something might change. Later that evening, while sitting in bed with a bowl of sliced mango, Alicia's phone rang. The hospital had emailed a proposed mediation agreement. She opened it. The offer was higher than before, substantially. But this time they included a clause about collaborative reform. They were willing to settle and launch a new bias and care initiative, led in part by Alicia herself. She stared at it. "You could take it," Jasmine said. "It's public. It doesn't muzzle you. And it forces them to commit to a process." Alicia looked at Marcus. He gave a small nod. "If it feels right." Alicia didn't answer right away. She looked out the window at the sky above the city, smoggy, gray, and cracked with rays of light. Change was a long game. But maybe this was a start. The courtroom was colder than Alicia expected. Not physically, though the air conditioning was definitely set by someone who didn't carry life inside them, but emotionally. It was sterile, clinical. Like the place itself didn't care what the outcome was. Alicia cared. So did Marcus, seated beside her in a slate-gray suit. So did Kenya and Sarah and the dozens of supporters who filled the back rows of the gallery. So did the cameras waiting just beyond the courthouse doors, red lights blinking like steady heartbeats. After months of investigations, interviews, legal strategy, depositions, discovery delays, and bad faith attempts to settle, Alicia Carter v. St. Aidan Memorial Hospital and Dr. Richard Hawley had finally made it to court. And today, Alicia would take the stand. When her name was called, she walked slowly, steadily, one hand brushing the side of her belly, now rounder than ever, at 37 weeks. The courtroom hushed as she was sworn in. Jasmine Fields, her attorney, stood from the plaintiff's table. "Miss Carter, can you describe the events of February 6th? Alicia nodded. "I was 28 weeks pregnant. I came to the St. Aidan Memorial Hospital with sharp upper abdominal pain, swelling in my hands, high blood pressure, and headaches. I told them I thought it might be serious. I was afraid." "Who did you encounter?" "Dr. Richard Hall." "Did he take your symptoms seriously?" "No. Can you explain?" Alicia's voice did not tremble. "He downplayed my pain, dismissed my blood pressure, refused to order tests, told me I was probably just anxious. He said women like me exaggerate discomfort during pregnancy." There was a low ripple in the courtroom. Jasmine continued. "And what happened afterward? I deteriorated. My condition worsened. I was later diagnosed with Heel-P syndrome, a severe, life-threatening form of preeclampsia. And what would have happened if you hadn't gotten a second opinion? I would have died, so would my child." The defense attorney, Mr. Calloway, was gray-haired and courteous. His tie was too red, like a desperate signal flare. "Miss Carter," he said smoothly, "you mentioned that you were seen later by another doctor, Dr. Patel. Would you agree that she provided the care you needed?" "Yes. So you did, in fact, receive proper medical treatment at St. Aidan's." "I received proper care despite Dr. Hawley." "Not because of him?" He nodded like he expected that answer. "You're not a physician, correct?" "No." "And you understand that EA doctors must make split-second decisions, that they see dozens of patients under immense pressure?" Alicia's eyes narrowed. "I'm also under pressure. I was in pain. I asked for help. I was ignored." "And you attribute that to racism?" Alicia didn't blink. "Yes. Do you believe every misdiagnosis is racist?" "No," she said, voice sharper now. "But patterns matter. This wasn't an isolated mistake. This is what happens when a doctor sees color before symptoms." He opened his mouth again, but Jasmine rose. "Objection? Argumentative?" "Sustained," the judge said. Calloway backed off. No further questions. Alicia stepped down and walked back to her seat, heart pounding. But her hands didn't shake. The following witnesses painted a damning picture. Kenya Adams, testifying about her ruptured ectopic pregnancy and Hale's refusal to order an ultrasound. Sarah bringing her incident reports, internal emails, and screenshots of Hale's comments on patient notes, including the term BPS, which he jokingly referred to as Black Pain Syndrome. A medical ethics expert who told the court, "This wasn't an error. It was a pattern of dismissiveness that endangered patients' lives." The defense called Hale himself last. He wore a plain black suit, no lab coat, no badge, no confidence. "I made a clinical judgment," he said. ERS are chaotic environments. Pain is subjective. "Did you consider Miss Carter's blood pressure to be alarming?" Calloway asked. "It was elevated, but not necessarily emergent. In the right upper quadrant pain, I believed it to be gastrointestinal. And her race? I treat all patients the same." Jasmine stood for the cross. "Dr. Hale, are you aware that black women are 3 times more likely to die during childbirth in the United States?" "Yes. And yet you're on record saying that black patients exaggerate their symptoms. Do you deny this?" "I don't recall saying that." Jasmine handed him a printed screenshot. His own words pulled from the internal hospital group chat. A joke about whiny patients and emotional young mothers with iPhones and imaginations. "Still don't recall?" she asked. He didn't answer. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, Alicia felt time slow. The foreperson, a middle-aged black woman with thick glasses and a firm mouth, stood. "On the charge of medical negligence, we find in favor of the plaintiff. On the charge of racial discrimination and care, we find in favor of the plaintiff. On the charge of emotional distress, we find in favor of the plaintiff." Gasps, whispers. A woman near the back began crying. Alicia's eyes closed. Marcus's hand tightened around hers. The judge awarded $2.4 million in damages, including punitive penalties. Dr. Hall lost his license. St. Aidan Memorial was placed under external review. Outside the courthouse, microphones waited. Alicia didn't flinch. She stepped up to the podium, 7 months pregnant and stronger than she'd ever felt. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every woman who's ever been told her pain wasn't real. About every black mother who begged to be believed. Today we said, enough. No more silence, no more dismissal, no more dying quietly." Behind her, Jasmine smiled. Kenya clapped. Sarah wept into her hands. The city, the country, was listening now. 2 months later, Alicia gave birth to a baby girl, Zuri Grace Carter. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect lungs, 10 fingers, 10 toes. The hospital room was brighter this time. The staff was attentive. The charts were accurate. Every beep was double-checked. Alicia held Zuri against her chest and whispered, "You will never be invisible. Not while I'm breathing." In the months that followed, Alicia and Kenya co-founded a non-profit, the Zuri Project, named after her daughter, dedicated to maternal health equity and anti-bias training in hospitals nationwide. Sarah became the organization's nursing director. Dr. Patel helped design the curriculum. Alicia began traveling, speaking to medical students, lawmakers, and community groups. She never forgot what it felt like to lie in a hospital bed and know that someone had weighed her worth against his own comfort and decided she didn't matter. So now she reminded the world she did, and so did every mother who came after her. 1 year later, at a university in D.C., Alicia stood behind a podium in front of 500 graduating medical students. Her speech was simple. "Your white coats give you power, but they don't make you right. Listening does, humility does, humanity does." She paused. "Remember that someone's life, someone's child, depends on whether you listen or assume. Choose wisely." When she stepped down, the crowd stood. White coats rose as one, and Alicia, holding Zuri in her arms, smiled as the applause washed over her. This time they saw her. This time they heard her.